Magandang gabi po sa kanilang lahat at maraming salamat Miss Giselle at Miss Angela at mga nakikinig sa podcast na ito. I'm very honored to be invited here on your first episode. Thank you for having me tonight. And as much as I wanted to participate live, uh, I got my vaccine today, so I wasn't really feeling well. And I didn't think I would be able to present it properly and more precise if ever I did it live. Um, so let's start. I would be presenting about the legal basis of the establishment of the European Union and uh, how and who can join the European Union. Like what are the criteria needed for it? Okay. So to start, what is European Union? It is an international organization comprising 27 European countries and governing common economic, social, and security policies. Originally, it was formed in Western Europe. However, EU has expanded into Central, and Eastern Europe in the early 21st century. EU was created by the Maastricht Treaty, which entered into force on 1993, 1st of November. It was designed to improve European political and economic integration by creating a single currency, unified foreign and security policy, and common citizenship rights, and by advancing cooperation in the areas of immigration, asylum, and judicial affairs. So how was European Union formed? As stated in the video earlier, the main step towards reunifying Europe came after the devastating impact of the world wars, which led to all sorts of new international agreements, borders, and structures. Here's a timeline of how European Union was formed. So on May 9, 1950, uh, in what became known as the Schuman Declaration, French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman announced the creation of a European coal and steel community placed under the control of common high authority. It proposed placing French and West German production of coal and steel under a single authority that would later be open to other European countries. The ultimate goal was to pacify relations between France and West Germany, in particular through gradual political integration, which would be achieved by creating common interests. Schuman asserted that the coming together of the countries of Europe requires the elimination of the age-old opposition of France and Germany. The solidarity in production thus established will make it plain that any war between France and Germany becomes not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. On April 18, 1951, the six founding members signed the Treaty of Paris. It created the European Coal and Steel Community, Europe's first supranational community, which paved the way for the European Economic Community and subsequently the European Union. So who are the inner six? Who are the ones who signed in this Treaty of Paris? They are called the inner six, namely France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The European Coal and Steel Community was the first international organization to be based on supranational principles and was, through the establishment of a common market for coal and steel, intended to expand the economies, increase employment, and raise the standard of living within the community. The market was also intended to progressively rationalize the distribution of high-level production while ensuring stability and employment. Next slide. On March 25, 1957, the six members of the European Coal and Steel Community signed the two treaties of Rome that established the European Atomic Energy Community, or Euratom, which was designed to facilitate cooperation in atomic energy development, research, and utilization, and the European Economic Community, or EEC. The EEC created a common market that featured the elimination of most barriers to the movement of goods, services, capital, and labor, the prohibition of most public policies or private agreements that inhibit market competition, a common agricultural policy, and a common external trade policy. On July 1, 1967, the Merger Treaty, also known as the Treaty of Brussels, was a European treaty which unified the executive institutions of the European Coal and Steel Community, the European Atomic Energy Community, and the European Economic Community. The treaty was signed in Brussels on April 1965 and came into force on July 1, 1967. It set out that the Commission of the European Communities should replace the High Authority of the ECSC, the Commission of the EEC, and the Commission of Euratom, and that the Council of the European Communities should replace the Special Council of Ministers of the ECSC, the Council of the EEC, and the Council of Euratom. Next slide. The Schengen Agreement is a treaty which led to the creation of Europe's Schengen area, in which internal border checks have largely been abolished. It was signed on 14 June 1985 near the town of Schengen, Luxembourg, by 5 of the 10 member states of the then European Economic Community. It proposed measures intended to gradually abolish border checks at the signatories' common borders, including reduced speed vehicle checks, which allowed vehicles to cross borders without stopping, allowing residents in border areas freedom to cross borders away from fixed checkpoints, and the harmonization of visa policies. So basically, they paved the way for the creation of open borders without passport controls between most member states and some non-member states. Okay. On February 7, 1992, the Maastricht Treaty concluded between the 12 member states of the European communities and is the foundation treaty of the European Union. Formerly the Treaty on European Union, it announced a new stage in the process of European integration, chiefly in provisions for a shared European citizenship, for the eventual introduction of a single currency, and for common foreign and security policies. The treaty also gave the name European Community to the EEC, even if it was referred to as such before the treaty. On December 31, 1992, the Single European Act was the first major revision of the 1957 Treaty of Rome. The Act set the European Community an objective of establishing a single market, as well as codified European political cooperation, the forerunner of the European Union's common foreign and security policy. A core element of the C was to create a single market within the European Community by 1992, when the legislative reforms seen necessary would have been completed in removing non-tariff barriers to cross-border inter-community trade and investment. It was proposed that such measures would provide the 12 member states a broad economic stimulus. And on December 1, 2007, the Lisbon Treaty, in particular, it changed the legal structure of the European Union, merging the EU three pillars system into a single entity provisioned with a legal personality, created a permanent president of the European Council, the first of which was Herman Van Rompuy, and strengthened the position of the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. This would be further discussed, I believe, by one of my group mates in the latter part of the presentation. And so with that said, we would be moving on to the membership. So as of today, the European Union members are Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, the Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden. The United Kingdom withdrew from the European Union on January 31, 2020. Only 19 out of the 27 EU countries have euro as their official currency, and they are collectively known as the Eurozone. Next slide. So becoming a member of the EU is a complex procedure which does not happen overnight. Once an applicant country meets the conditions for membership, it must implement EU rules and regulations in all areas. These conditions are known as the Copenhagen criteria and include a free market, which include a free market economy, a stable democracy, and the rule of law, and the acceptance of all EU legislation, including of the euro currency. So what is the Copenhagen criteria? Copenhagen criteria refers to the overall criteria which applicant countries have to meet as a prerequisite for becoming members of the European Union. To be more specific, the Copenhagen criteria require: one, the stability of institutions guaranteeing of democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and the respect for and protection of minorities. Two, the existence of a functioning market economy as well as the capacity to cope with competitive pressure and market forces within the EU. Three, the ability to take on the obligations of memberships, including adherence to the aims of political unification as well as economic and monetary union. Next slide. So the process of joining the EU accession. It consists of 3 stages. The first would be candidate for membership. When the country is ready, it becomes an official candidate for membership. But this does not necessarily mean that formal negotiations have been opened. Second, the candidate moves on to formal membership negotiations, a process that involves the adoption of established EU law, preparations to be in a position to properly apply and enforce it, and implementation of judicial, administrative, economic, and other reform necessary for the country to meet the conditions for joining, known as accession criteria. When the negotiations and accompanying reforms have been completed to the satisfactions of both sides, the country can join the EU. Due to the huge volume of EU rules and regulations each candidate country must adopt as national law, the negotiations take time to complete. The candidates are supported financially, administratively, and technically during this pre-acquisition period. Next slide. So, as of now, who are the candidate countries? These countries are in the process of transposing or integrating EU legislation into national law, into their national laws. There are 5, namely Albania, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, and Turkey. And also, there are potential candidates. These are the countries that do not yet fulfill the requirements for EU membership. These are Bosnia and Herzegovina, and second is Kosovo. And that's it for my presentation about the legal basis and membership of the European Union. Thank you again for your time. And thank you, Miss Giselle and Miss Angela, for the opportunity to present. Thank you and have a good night. I'll be giving back the floor to Miss Giselle.